Count me in. We're live, believe it or not, and I'm unmuted, which apparently happened just before. It is all about hip pain again. We're bringing this series in for a landing. It's been a great series. We've had some awesome feedback, both from you guys, our YouTube audience, and our Inner Circle tribe on the emails that go out every day. So I'll just quickly mute my computer. Very excited. We've got some great exercises. We're taking a different angle today, and we're moving forward on the progressions of the exercise. We've got some big mistakes people are making when they try these exercises without knowing the fundamentals and the key insight of today's show. All that and more coming up right after this. We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image. Lights turned up all the way.
Yeah, we're back. Hey everyone, in case we haven't met, my name's Rad Burmeister. That's my brother Yanni Burmeister. We're the co-creators of Unity Gym and the co-founders of Unity Gym and the co-creators of the Unified Movement System. The UMS, formerly known as the FMS, where we teach you how to nourish and move instead of diet and exercise. And I've finished my protein bar now, so I'm not chewing anymore. And I'm going to give a quick shout out to Roger Talevsky, who is an old member of ours, one of Yanni's personal training clients from 10 years ago, a good friend of ours, and also now the proud owner of F45 in Blakehurst. So thanks for tuning in, Roger. Great to have you on the show, brother.
Get out there if you're in the Blakehurst area or the Southern Shire area, because they run a wicked show.
Yeah, they do.
They have a great culture, great community in their gym.
Yeah, and we're overdue for a catch-up, Roger, so get your butt over to North Sydney. Okay, so we're going out on the gym floor, right?
Let's go straight out first. We'll get into the exercises real quick, and then we're going to come in and dissect them and talk about why these are exercises that we like and use in our hip rehab programming. Today is really cool because we're sort of moving forward on the regression path, and we're starting to work on the glute med and min, which essentially do the same job. They're just layered one on top of the other, and we'll bring up an image and show you and talk about that after we've gone out. But this is where it gets fun, because what we're going to start to do has an impact on both up and down the kinetic chain. These exercises help to solve a lot of lower back problems, lower back pain, things like that. So let's dive straight out. If Richie's got gimbal cam ready.
Yeah, and if you've just tuned in, guys, please hit the like button and comment with your name and where you're watching from. Even if you watch every day, it really helps us with the algorithm.
And it helps us to know who we're talking to, so we can give you guys a little bit of personal love.
That's right.
All right, I'm on the mic, so I'm going to keep talking. Rad's going to go silent. As we've said before, we did quite a large investment in a couple of Rode lapel or lavalier mics this year, thinking that it was going to be a solution for us both to be talking out here, but it ended up being an issue because they were digital mics, not analog mics, and they interfered with the stream. So the first exercise we're going to do, this is a progression from our, you remember in the first exercise demo we did with this, we did a single leg deadlift with a kettlebell in front. Then we progressed to a single leg squat with the barbell on the back. Now we're going to do the final of the three progressions here, which is a single leg good morning. And the big difference is that you're going to notice a lot less bend in Rad's knee, and he's going to go, let's get it a bit more low bar. Okay, so nice and easy. Yeah, I should say, you'll notice in the last two demos, if you caught yesterday's show, Rad did a single leg squat, and usually we do it in a low bar position where the barbell would sort of sit right down here on top of his posterior deltoid. But he's had a slap tear in his shoulder, and he's coming back from a long, painful rehab. It was a pretty bad injury, and he just doesn't want to push it down that far because it can aggravate, and he's working extremely hard to sort of get over that injury. So for argument's sake, for everyone else, I'd like to see the bar a little lower down on the back for this one, because otherwise what can happen is when he bends forward, Rad's got nice developed upper trapezius muscles, so his neck is fairly well protected. but the bar can roll up onto the back of the base of the cervical spine in the neck, and we don't want that. It's just uncomfortable. Okay, so hinging at the hip, much less bend in the knee. The most important thing, if you spin around and come around here, Richie, and get an angle of this amazing example of gluteus maximus and min and med, the most important thing I want you guys to pay attention to is hip alignment. We want the pelvis and both of the ischium crests of the pelvis here as level as possible. Any hinge in the hip where he drops and goes onto an angle is incorrect. And so this movement that we're working here, we're getting a whole bunch of things going. First and foremost, because it's a single leg movement, his inverters and everters in the foot are working extremely hard to keep him stable. His knee and the muscles that work intrinsically with the glute, the vastus medialis and the oblique muscle fibers there are working extremely hard to keep his knee stable. It's firing that up the kinetic chain, and he's working extremely hard to keep his hips level. So the med and min are working extremely hard to keep the knee tracking, so they're already getting a workout, even though we're going to show you more specific stuff for them in a moment. The glute max and the big global muscles are getting a fantastic workout. So now, as we spoke about yesterday, training the body as a system, these progressions are really doing that well. Everything's working together. We're not in isolation anymore. We're doing very functional, real-world movements. Have you got your band, your glute loop?
Well, before we do that, why don't we show the ultimate single leg exercise that I realise you've forgotten about there?
What's that?
The helicopter one. Where you go from here and rotate. Remember that one?
Well, no, I don't want to do that because because we're dealing with people with hip injury here. Yeah, and that's too. What Rad's just shown you is way too advanced for someone who's coming back from a hip injury or hip pain. Okay.
Soft.
Well, yeah, to a degree. Let's keep it simple. Let's keep it simple. All right, so Rad's getting his glute loop around the legs again. Now you can position the glute loop at the ankles or below the knees, just below the knees at the top of the shin. It's going to be doing slightly different things. For the lateral band walk, what I might actually get you to do, no, leave it around there. So the first thing we're going to do is a forward and a lateral band walk. And the forward band walk, get a little bit softer in the knees. Go nice and slow, and what the idea is, go straight towards the camera so that the guys can see you. So he's trying to put tension outward on the band whilst he walks forward and then walks backward. And that tension on the band is up-regulating the glute min and med because their job is to abduct the leg, okay? So we could go into more isolation exercises for glute min and med, doing hip clams, hip abduction exercises, but that's not what we want to do here. We're not trying to hypertrophy these muscles. We're trying to use them in the real world. So we're trying to upregulate how much they work in real world scenarios. So the next one we're going to do is the lateral band walk. And you may as well just go side to side and Richie can see what you're doing. So the most important thing with the lateral band walk is that we take a bigger step on the outer foot than we do on the inner foot, so we keep that tension. We never want to be bringing the feet together. He's got about a quarter range squat going there, so he's got a lot of tension. He's switched on all the muscles in the lower extremity, and now he's just working to really push those knees out. Now, if you're an untrained individual or someone who's got sort of weaker glute min and med, you can even use a band just under the knees when we do squats or glute bridges, hip thrusts, things like that. This is a really great way to upregulate your glute min and med activation. Okay, now the last exercise we're going to do is a single leg hop. So we'll use a small step, and this is now where we take the hip stabilization to a very functional level for athletic performance. So let's say that you are a football player. I know that Roger Talevsky, who is watching on the live stream, used to play fairly high level football, and he had a labrum tear, which I started working with him originally.
You should say that this is actually a very high height. You'd probably start.
Yeah, that's true. What Rad was just saying here is that this is quite high, quite difficult. We'd probably suggest for a beginner starting at about half this height. But the idea is that Rad's going to hop from one foot and land on one foot. And this is a really, really great exercise to get those hip stabilizers going. And you just do reps. So this is called a depth jump, where he's jumping down. You can obviously progress this to a harder exercise where you do a box jump, where you jump up onto the box using that. But this is taking that dynamic stability system, which think of it as the rotator cuff for the hip, to really push it to prevent glide, which is what we've been talking about, is the part of the movement that we don't want. You know, we've got abduction, we've got flexion, we've got extension in the hip, we've got hip rotation, internal and external. Those are all movements, the desired movements that we want. But then there's that glide in the joint that rubs and causes problems for all of the surrounding structures, arthritis, things like that. The hip rotator cuff, that sort of sheath of 4 or 5 muscles, including the piriformis is the one that everyone knows, is the responsible for keeping that femur bone sitting in the right position and minimizing that glide, that slippage of the joint. Should we go back in the room so we can talk about this at on a deeper level with both mics going? Rad needs to get on his favoured side. Looks better, apparently. Okay, so first and foremost, we just want to bring up, if you want to bring up the image of the glute min and med, which Rad and I have got here that we're looking at, so we can explain and give you guys a visual image of where these muscles are. And then tell me when you got it up, Richie. Awesome, we got it up. So you look on the left side of the image, you can see that the muscles have been cut away. The glute max has been cut away, and you've got a glute medius cut as well. Underneath that, you can see the glute min. You can see on the right side with the glute med and the glute max intact that the glute medius and the glute min are on top of one another, and they both insert into the greater trochanter of the femur pretty much around the same spot. And that the insertion point of a bone is super important, because that kind of signifies the role that it has, the outcome. When those muscles contract together, that's where they're pulling on, and so it creates the same sort of action. And that's a really, that's why I sort of say that they kind of do the same job. And these muscles, of course, as we said yesterday, you know, we're trying to bring this in and paint the picture of this working as a system. And the illustration that you guys are looking at there on the screen, of course, separates the muscles quite nicely for explanation's sake. But remember, it's all working as a big global system together, and they've all got sort of individual roles that are being played at the same time to provide the movement that we're so used to. But the reason why Rad and I wanted to go so deep on this topic is because we feel like there's a bit of a gap in the health and fitness industry. We all put a lot of effort into training the rotator cuff in the shoulder, but not many people are putting enough effort into training the rotator cuff in the hip, so to speak. It's not even called the rotator cuff. It's just called a dynamic stability system. And we like to say the same thing about the shoulder. They both do a very similar job. Although the hip joint is a sort of deeper socket and arguably a more stable socket because it has to take a lot of load, then it's still very vulnerable to glide. And if you look at the amount of hip replacement and knee replacements that people have to have at later age, it sort of begs the question, why are we not putting a little bit more effort into training the dynamic stability system in the hip during our gym sessions, you know, because we all want to live forever. We all want to be functional for as long as we possibly can, and we want to do it we want to avoid, you know, what poor old Ronnie Coleman's had to deal with, which is a double knee replacement. And I know a lot of, you know, strong people that need hip replacements, you know. So that's where we went with this.
It's an interesting topic as well, because I've got some of the strongest legs and strongest lower body in our gym from the Kung Fu training that I did. And when you do Kung Fu, a lot of the stuff would be considered hip stabilization exercises if you did it with a physiotherapist. But that's not what it's done in Kung Fu. It's just that in Kung Fu you do heaps of kicking and jumping and landing on one leg, and a lot of lunges, and a lot of, you know, the rooster walk is massive hip stabilization. And you do so much of it that I developed a level of hip stabilization that I think very few people ever get in their lives, and it's carried with me for my whole life. Like we've seen it time and time again where I don't squat for God knows how long, and I come back and within a week or two I'm squatting as much as anybody else who's been working hard on it, and I never have problems with my hips. It's just something that I've never dealt with.
Yeah.
So yeah, some real world practical application of it is when you really double down on this stuff and when you get involved in it and make it a massive part of your life, like I did, you definitely bulletproof your body.
Yeah.
And you get something that sticks with you for life. I'm a firm believer that if you follow a program where you have a specific goal, like for example my shoulder rehabilitation program, or like the hip rehabilitation program that we're going to be writing on the back end of this series, that if you follow that for 6 months solidly, where you're doing the same thing a minimum of 3 times a week, so even up to 5 or 6 times a week the same thing, then in 6 months you can hypertrophy and strengthen the muscles in a way where even if you don't do those exercises anymore, as long as you keep strength training, so as long as you're still stimulating strength and muscle hypertrophy in primary movements, that you keep that strength for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in that.
And absolutely. Well, these are systems in the body that are designed to work intrinsically with the way we move. But the problem is that we all spend so much time sitting down on our bums these days that, and we were talking to Phil about this yesterday, one of the most common things, he's worked in hospitals before with elderly people, they've just got zero muscle here. They got both, the muscles are very small and frail, but there's very little neural connection. Remember, out of the 6 different adaptations that deliver what we know as strength in movement, 4 or 5 of them are neurological. They're all about the nervous system, the brain mapping itself, how strong the signal comes from the brain to the muscle, the sequencing and coordination of all the different muscles working together. These are all neurological things that we need to do. And the types of movement that we're doing here, part of the role and the goal is to develop those neurological pathways so that we are stronger in everything, Now, I want to just quickly reinforce that the key insight of this show today, the thing that I want you guys to take home is that the hip and the muscles that we've spent a week teaching you guys how to switch on, activate, develop strength in, and possibly even hypertrophy, they all play a key role in the health of both your knee and your lower back. 9 times out of 10, if someone comes to me with a knee problem or a low back problem, I work on these exact things that you guys have been doing this week and fix the problem. And they think, how do we do that? We didn't do anything for the lower back, or we didn't do anything for the knee, But the reality is that it just all plays such a large role in supporting and stabilizing one another, And so I think the hip is an overlooked area of the body, and when we think hip, we think, okay, let's deadlift, let's do back extensions, which are all great exercises, Romanian deadlifts, split squats, all things that we use in our programming, but we often don't go back to the dynamic stability system, give that a real chance to fire up. And you're absolutely right with what you said before. All those rooster walking drills that you used to do, all that sort of stuff, that's all dynamic hip stability and things like that, So,
I remember when I started doing all that stuff, how bad I was at it, and I think that's where a lot of people go wrong. They don't people favour their strengths. So when they start doing something that they're really bad at, they don't want to work on it. And in the gym, everybody wants quick results, and the majority of people, a lot of the reason why they're at the gym is for aesthetic reasons, or even if not, there is this movement, excuse the pun, now where their goals are more around wanting to be able to do pull-ups or handstands or muscle-ups, but even still, they favour just the big movements that in their mind they can see this relates to a pull-up because I'm doing bicep curls or I'm doing eccentric pull-ups, but they won't do the trap 3 raises and the scapular stability work and the rotator cuff strengthening work because they can't relate that to what it is that they're doing.
Yeah.
It's something that if you can stomach and if you can do the time and, just accept that, if you look at, I always look at my future in 6-month chunks with my training. So when I have a goal, I think, okay, what can I do for the next 6 months that's going to get me, to a certain point. And yeah, it's. I think if people could be a little bit smarter with that, then yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of just leave this series understanding that there is this with every joint, and we'll just recap because some of you may have just tuned in for this show and not caught the earlier shows. Every joint in the body suffers glide, and it's something that we can't really completely eliminate, but it's something that we want to minimize at all costs, because glide, which is the actual bone sliding on the surface that it's meant to be located on or positioned on, is a massive cause of wear and tear to that joint. And it can also, if left untreated or it gets too bad and the glide starts to happen too much, it can start to affect the structures around it, the passive structures and the active structures around it, which are the ligaments, the tendons, and the muscles, of course. So you absolutely, what Rad's saying, to do the smaller stuff, you absolutely want to be prioritizing this as, if you're further along in your training journey, then as supplementary stuff to complement your primary movements. And if you're early on in the journey, then lay the foundation now. Spend some time now getting these muscles activated, getting those neural connections strong, as Phil likes to say, increasing the amount of pressure. He always uses the reference of water pressure, of a hose, which I think is really, really good because you can visualize it. The neural connection from brain to muscle is like water flowing. And the more you train these, the more water pressure and the quicker these signals get through and the better they get through. So this is all stuff that's just so important that people neglect. Now, obviously, we're going to dive in and say that the biggest mistake that people make is that they neglect this stuff and they don't understand the importance of the dynamic stability systems in the body. And the two areas of the body that we have the most important dynamic stability system is the hip and the shoulder. As we've said here, and maybe we are one of the first training programs to put emphasis on this, you've pretty much got a rotator cuff in the shoulder and the hip, and they both need as much attention as one another. And so
it's probably important to clarify what dynamic means as well, because the word dynamic gets thrown around a lot and people don't really understand the context of it. So dynamic in this case would be opposed to isolated. So we're not talking about isolating stability by putting our arm or our leg in a fixed position and creating stability like that, which is right at the start of the journey. We're talking about strengthening the rotator cuffs of the shoulders and the hips to create dynamic stability, which means stability during movement. So whilst you're moving, whilst you're going through ranges of motion, whilst you're challenging your body in unexpected circumstances, which is what life is, that those stability systems are working dynamically to prevent that glide.
Yeah.
So that's what Yanni means every time he's saying dynamic stability rather than just stability.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's where we get that wear and tear, and we are more susceptible to injury when we don't have that dynamic stability.
And it's where a lot of people are going wrong with their training, with working the stabilizers, is that they're doing it in a fixed position and in a fixed plane of motion that doesn't replicate dynamic stability. It creates stability in that fixed plane of motion only, and it doesn't transfer as well into real life, and you can still get these problems, which is where a lot of this stuff that we're talking about, this is why we're demonstrating these exercises and not some of the more basic stuff that you see.
Yeah, which is, he's referring to internal and external rotation, but that's where people leave it. They go, okay, I'll do external rotation, and that's all I'm going to do for the rotator cuff. And
which is amazing. It was an amazing part of my journey, and it's
absolutely
something that we even use, even not as rehabilitation exercises, we even use it as strengthening and prehabilitation exercise, but it doesn't stop there.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
You have to...
It's one tool in the toolbox.
Yeah.
It's one tool in the toolbox. All right, guys. Well, look.
we've got to say morning, Kevin. And good that you got the notification today, brother. Thanks for tuning in.
I gave YouTube a bit of a rattle yesterday, and it looks like the shake has come out with a result, which is fantastic, mate. So we got a couple of shout outs, and guys, we got a few people on the stream. Smash that like button if you like this topic. The more engagement we get here, the more effort we're going to put into an actual program that you can go and use. There will be periodized and things like that.
Yeah, and leave a comment with your name and where you're watching from. It means so much to us, so that not just so that we can give you a shout out, but also to help the algorithm.
Yeah, absolutely. So we got a couple of shout outs here in regards to yesterday's show, hip pain, how to progress glute strength. Grimace, what would you say that?
Grimace knee,
yeah. Grimace knee. Just coming off an abductor strain that took 9 months to heal, and these types of exercises have really helped me a lot. I didn't realize how weak I was in my glutes, etc. Hey, listen, yesterday when I've been demonstrating a whole bunch of stuff here for people, and I've been doing some very, what would be considered basic hip stabilization, and I fatigued very quickly, which exposed me. I was like, wow, I need to go back and do some of this stuff as well, you know. So don't worry if that's the case for you. Some of these drills will find people wanting. Baz Hamikwa, something like that. Same video, same show yesterday. Loving the hip focus tutorials. Not much good info out there. Really underrated body part when it comes to training, that most overlooked, but crucial to improving performance. Keep up the great work. Thank you very much, brother.
Thanks,
and
bro.
This is exactly why we're doing this, because this is a really overlooked area of the body, and it's quite surprising really, because it's so important. And it's so funny because, you know, you don't often hear people needing shoulder replacements or elbow replacements, but we hear of a lot of hip and knee replacements. So it is clearly an area that's neglected. You're absolutely right. Dr. Phil. This is literally Dr. Phil commenting here. That's his name. Not our Dr. Phil, another Dr. Phil.
The real Dr. Phil.
Yeah.
The one with the talk show in America, it looks like.
Have you done a video on anterior glide syndrome? An American therapist suggested that could be my problem, and may be correct. I did martial arts and my hip was always clunking around in the socket when kicking. Another therapist here told me it was a very common thing for Taekwondo guys as well. My friend, who is a yoga teacher, gets me to hang a kettlebell from a belt. I'm assuming, I don't understand the context of hanging a kettlebell from a belt. I know that there are squatting drills that you will do with that.
But anterior glide, if I'm not mistaken, is talking about the femur having an anterior glide.
Absolutely.
Which is basically what this entire series has been about,
That's
man.
exactly right.
So rewatch this whole series, because this is funny, you know. We were talking about this just this morning, about an email that you got this morning, and that we were talking. Yanni came up to me and said, man, you wouldn't believe how many emails I get like this. And I read it and I said, you wouldn't believe how many emails I get like this, which is, in essence, it's somebody describing an issue with their body and saying, you know, in a roundabout way, this is a unique issue. How do I go about it? Do you have any programs that deal with this? And the truth is, guys, your issues aren't as unique as you think they are. They're really not. When you've been in the game for as long as Yanni and I have, and you work with great physiotherapists like Phil, so, you know, we're not just personal trainers here that have access to our own knowledge base. If we ever don't know anything, we go straight to Phil, a fully qualified physiotherapist who's done, you know, over 7 years study at university, and we grill him. And we've also got friends that are chiropractors that have been in the game for over a decade that we can ask, that are just around the corner. So we know our stuff, and there's not that many different issues that are going on. And what you've just described here, Dr. Phil, you've literally described one of the most common problems that this program fixes.
Yeah.
So do what we've just described this week.
Yeah.
And we're going to be releasing a proper program with proper tutorials and program cards and progressions for this in the next couple of weeks. Get that, man. It'll save you, honestly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Mega lol, is it possible to fix the scapular winging without equipment? Oh, we answered that yesterday. Yeah,
it looks like we're in.
It absolutely is. Yeah,
yesterday's.
that's it. That's pretty much it. You know. So, guys, if everyone on the stream has nothing more to add, and you don't have any questions,
Any last questions? Hit them up. We got about 30 seconds, because that's how long it takes for us to catch up to.
Yeah, we got to talk for another 30 seconds so they hear that, and then. The reality is we had a lot of people asking us last week about why we haven't done a flash sale in the last couple of weeks. The truth is that we've been very busy on a shoulder program, a shoulder rehab program, which a lot of people have asked for, and that's sort of taken our focus away. And we didn't really want to do anything until then, but we've decided last minute today that we're going to do a flash sale on just the best place to get started, which was our 18-minute stretch and 18-minute strength routines. And because so many people really liked that last time we did it. So we're going to do that this week, and that'll get us through so that you guys have an opportunity, if it suits you, to dive into the Unify movement system and Unity Gym ecosphere and become part of our inner tribe. Remember, guys, if you just want to go a little bit further and get into our sort of outer circle so that we can stay connected via email every day, I do my daily blogs, then download our, it's our flexibility blueprint, which is always linked in the description of every video. You can also, and this is going to be my answer to the gentleman who emailed me this morning in regards to his ailments and issues. The UMS online coaching program is hands down what we believe the best program to create a high functioning human body. It's not specified to any sport. What we do is make people strong, flexible and athletic and very, very lean in the process. And that's what we're very, very good at doing. If you want to dive headfirst into our inner circle, we give anyone who watches our shows a 30-day free trial of that program. And if you go to our Google reviews and have a look, we will back it up. It is the best program possible online. And honestly, guys, we really live by that, and that's why we offer a 30-day free trial, because we know that anyone who dives into that, takes up that offer and actually does the program, implements and takes accountability, they love it and they don't leave. So give that a try. We've got a couple of people who have dived in. How to fix shoulder range of motion. Aisha.
Like you can't lift your arms up on my own, but when I lay down, it's fine. We have some amazing videos on that. You really want to watch our series. If you go to our YouTube channel, and there's a playlist, and there's a whole playlist devoted to shoulder flexibility.
And Aisha, what you're talking about there, being able, if you lay on the floor, being able to do it, you need end range strength, and that's what you need to work on. And I'll be completely honest, again, and this sounds like a shameful plug, that's exactly what our UMS program does. So if I was you, I would take the opportunity that's in the link in the description, get the 30-day free trial. You're going to get access to phase 1 of the program, which has a massive emphasis on shoulder function, and just dive into that. Just really go for it. Give it everything you've got for a month. If you don't want to continue, just quit it, and you don't pay a cent. It's free, make the most of it. That's also going to bring you into our inner circle so we can stay connected. We have a private Facebook group, which is how we give everyone support, answer questions. We do personal videos for people that ask questions in the private group. I can't say any more. It is honestly the best way to solve exactly that. Anyway, guys, that looks like it's it. That's all we're getting. It's Friday here in Sydney, Australia. That means that we'll be back on Monday. We've got a couple of big things dropping next week. We've got a huge series lined up. We're going deep into knee health next week. Very excited to share that with you because Rad and I have somewhat become knee pros because I had a knee reconstruction a few years ago, and we're excited to bring that stuff to you.
We've got some really good topics coming up. We're going to be doing knee health, and then after that we're going to be doing an entire week on tendinopathy and tendinitis.
Yep.
One of the most common issues that people have.
Now only tendinopathy. They've removed tendinitis. They basically believe that it's non-existent. Okay. Right. It's just different stages of tendinopathy, which is another thing that we've just learned.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of having Phil here.
and having a great network to bounce ideas off.
Still, our golfer's elbow video, how to fix golfer's elbow, is still by a country mile our most popular video, so it's obviously a hot topic, so watch out for that one. You're welcome, Aisha. Seriously, jump in, check those videos out, but as Yanni said, if you're serious about this, 30 days, give it a try. If you don't like it, cancel. You won't pay a cent. You've got nothing to lose. Get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we can help you then on a much more
I tried to
high
drop the
level.
mic there, but I
yeah,
couldn't 'cause
mic
it was
drop.
I tried to do a
It's on
mic
a
drop, but
stand.
it's on a stand, so it didn't work.
All right, guys, watch out for the email coming out today. It's going to give you an exclusive opportunity to grab our best starter pack, beginner pack, where to get started. 18-minute stretch routine by a country mile is our most popular program that we've ever created. Very much unknowingly to us. We didn't think it would be, but it is. And the 18-minute strength routine was our most successful launch ever that we launched about 5 weeks ago. So that's going to hit your inboxes in a couple of hours, and then for 72 hours it'll be on a ridiculous special. Until next week, take care. Health is about performance, not just body image.
You better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, it's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that
It's
far.
the consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.